In fact, a class action lawsuit against Ford for those model vehicles.
Sustain the jury.
Hey, what's up, guys? LegalBro here. Today we're breaking down Darrell Brooks's closing argument to talk about what you want to do when presenting your closing argument. Now, obviously, as you can tell by my hair color and hairline, I'm not the most experienced guy out there, right? I'm a young guy, young trial lawyer. I haven't tried as many cases as a lot of these silver foxes out here, but what I can tell you is this: a closing argument is usually very structured. You're going to relate back to your theme. You're going to tie in the witness testimony that was presented and heard in court, and you want to give the jury the tools that they need to find for your client when they go back and deliberate. Let's see if Darrell Brooks followed any of that for his closing argument.
You should be informed that you have the power to nullify any law that you don't agree with.
Objection. Move to strike the statement.
Not off to a great start. You can't nullify any law that you disagree with. The first thing that's going to happen before you ever get to trial is you're going to have pretrial. Every party is going to disclose their witness list, their proposed exhibits. The only thing that they're not going to tell is if they have any impeachment exhibits, right? Or anything that they're going to use to basically refute any of that testimony. But there's no surprises, right? There's no like, gotcha, we pulled the guy from the cheap seats and he's going to testify about this, or we found an expert, at the 11th hour who's going to destroy you about this. There's none of that, right? So sometimes, occasionally, you see parties try to squeak that in, but for the most part, everybody at pretrial knows what's going on, including what the law is and what the jury questionnaire is going to be. So the verdict forms, right? All of the forms that are going to say, okay, if yes, then this, if no, then this, and then the court in a criminal case has sentencing guidelines, right? So if Darrell Brooks is found guilty of first degree intentional murder, what's he looking at? He's looking at X. He's looking at life in prison, right? If he's down here in Florida, he's probably getting the death penalty, and rightfully so. Anyway, now in civil cases, the verdict form and things like that are basically either agreed to by the parties, or if there are any discrepancies or disputes, they're resolved by the court, right? In this criminal case, it's like, hey, you violated this statute. Did they violate the statute or not, right? The verdict form's going to be very clear. Darrell Brooks can't say, yeah, just, you find me guilty. You can just toss that, right? Just find me guilty and then just throw it out. Don't need it. Can't do that, Darrell. Not allowed.
Sustain.
Objection.
I will strike from the record the last
Objection.
statement made by the defendant. The jury will disregard it.
Which is clearly what I've been saying. I believe that not only is it fair, but it's essential that you be privy to all knowledge, not knowledge that certain people feel that you should hear and shouldn't hear, disguised under the color of law. But the fact of the matter is, the vehicle in question, make and model of 2010 Ford Escape. The vehicle in question, actually 2008, 2009, and 2010 of that model was in fact recalled.
Objection. Misstatement of the facts. Facts not
Was in fact,
Give me a break.
was in fact recalled. Was in fact a class action lawsuit against Ford
Objection.
for those model vehicles.
Sustain the jury.
All right. So one of the things that you can't do, folks, is you can't talk about stuff at closing that didn't appear in trial, right? Like you're not allowed to argue new arguments during your closing. And you certainly can't bring in expert testimony that you didn't bring in during your own case in chief, right? So here's how it would have been done if Darrell Brooks's theory, held up. right? When the state rested their case in chief and it was Darrell Brooks' turn to put up his defense case in chief, what he would have done is he would have presented his experts and he would have presented his witnesses to show that this alleged Ford model had some sort of defect. Now, Darrell doesn't identify the defect from the class action. He doesn't even identify what the recall was for, right? God only knows what this could have been for. There's zero indication that he, even if Darrell's right that there was some sort of accelerator defect, there is zero indication that Darrell Brooks experienced that issue on the day of the crash, on the day that he intentionally hit these innocent people. Instead, what do you have? You have this entire investigation cost tens of thousands of dollars, saying that Darrell Brooks intentionally killed these people. That is directly in contrast with what he's saying here, talking about a vehicle recall and a vehicle defect. And obviously, if that had been the case, the investigators would have investigated some component of that or would have been notified of some component of that. The fact is, Darrell Brooks is a killer, which is why he intentionally drove that vehicle, not because of some Ford recall.
Disregard.
Information that you should have been privy to, that you weren't allowed to be privy to. Why? I don't know. That information, malfunctioning throttle bodies.
Mr. Brooks.
All right, so if I'm sitting on the jury, likely never get picked to sit on a jury, which is sad. But if I'm sitting on the jury listening to Darrell Brooks, Darrell, you're losing me here, buddy. You gotta streamline it for me. You can't stand up here and pontificate for your closing argument. You gotta streamline it for me. And oh, by the way, I think the evidence at this point has presented that you are in fact a calculated and intentional killer. The jury obviously got it right. Thank God Darrell Brooks is off the streets. Now, I said I wasn't swayed. Let's hear what the jury had to say about Darrell Brooks' closing.
Find the defendant, Darrell E. Brooks, guilty of first-degree intentional homicide as charged in count 1 of the information. Dated this 26th day of October 2022, signed by the foreperson. Hey, you...
All right, so real quick, the court's talking about an information. That's basically just the filing that the police did to charge him, right? Different states do different things. Obviously, in federal court, a lot of times what you hear is they impanel a grand jury and the grand jury comes down with an indictment, right? Information is going to be right in line with that. When you hear information, think of filing that law enforcement does.
You are to be removed right now. You will not do...
So basically what happened after the jury rendered their verdict and the court discussed it, you hear somebody from the crowd, likely a member of the victim's family, say, burn in hell, right? Obviously, extremely impassioned. Darrell Brooks probably deserved to get decked, but obviously the court has to maintain decorum, and that's why she asked for the individual to be removed. If you like this content and you want to see more, go ahead and like and subscribe. If you want to see me do more Darrell Brooks content or there's some other trial you want to see me cover, leave us a comment down below.